Good evening, everyone. I am Sue Hodgen, and I am calling the June 20th regular meeting of the Southport Planning Board to order. Thank you for being here with us, members. We're going to ask that everyone silence, please, or turn off their cell phones. And I'll make a note at this point, Roy Pender is absent tonight for health reasons, so City Alternate Kevin Lachlan will be serving tonight with full voting privileges. We also continue to send member Dick Sloan our well wishes, hoping he'll be back to the table with us soon. Let's start by those who can and will please stand while Board Member Donnie Joyner offers our invocation, and we'll follow with our allegiance.
Let us pray. All wise and almighty God, it's once again we'd like to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to wake up this morning in our right minds. And Father, we ask also your thanks and blessings that we conduct the business brought before this board tonight for the city of Southport in a fair and decent way. And when this meeting is over with, we ask that you send your guardian angels with each and every one of us to get us back to our loved ones safely. These and all other blessings in your precious name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, gentlemen, our agenda item D is the oath of office for City Member Fred Fiss. From recent interviews conducted and the recommendation of the interviewer panel, the Board of Aldermen have appointed Fred Fiss to his first full 3-year term. Fred, will you join Deputy City Clerk Tanya Shannon and me at the podium for your swearing in?
I, Fred Fiss,
I, Fred Fiss,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of the Planning Board for the City of Southport, so help me God.
as a member of the Planning Board for the City of Southport, so help me God. All right? Thank you.
And while we're at the podium, I'd ask that Donnie Joyner join us, please. Donnie has been in an ETJ position on the town's planning board since 2012. What a historical resource and perspective he's brought. Donnie's active in several community efforts and felt he was pulled in too many directions, so he decided not to apply for reappointment. This will be Donnie's final meeting with us, so we wanted to give him all due credit. Donnie, I want to present to you this token of our appreciation for being with us for so long and for all the good things that you bring to the city of Southport. Thank you so much, sweetie.
Thank you very much.
Item E is the approval of our May minutes. Members were issued the minutes of the May 16 meeting in advance of this meeting, and they are on pages 3 through 7 of your packet. Are there any changes or corrections? Do I hear a motion to approve the May minutes as prepared? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Will. Donnie, thank you. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Item F is the approval of this evening's agenda. This was also issued in advance. Are there any additions or corrections to it? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve that? Thank you, Will. And a second? Thank you, Fred. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That too passes unanimously. Thank you. Item G is public comment. Do I hear a motion, please, to move into the public comment period? Thank you, Will. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Donnie. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any names?
Nobody's signed up.
Thank you. Are there any e-submitted comments to read this evening?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. And then is there anyone who did not sign up but still wishes to address the board? Being none, do I hear a motion to end public comment? Thank you, Will. Second? Donnie, thank you. Motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. This is running great. We like this. Moving on to item H, old business. Item number 1, section 3.19 in the UDO, signs. This is page 8 in your packets, gentlemen. Mo, if you'll review for us the most recently prepared memo, including the updates from the committee meeting. And you get to battle that mic now.
There we go. All right. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. This first item, as we have mentioned, is our old business. This is a text amendment for the sign ordinance for section 3.19. So the sign committee has met on June 13th to review the text changes that were made at your May meeting and make sure that the language was following the request that was voted on, and also to consider the allowance of an open sign that is neon or neon looking. That was brought forward from that May meeting as well. Further, Mr. Fiss asked to review and clarify a couple of the sections within the sign ordinance, one of those being the size of an internally lit sign. And after discussion, the committee chose to limit the size of the internally lit signs. They wanted to have the goal of less internally lit signs with more signs without lighting over it, rather than an internally lit sign, and moving forward for the goals of the city. So the changes from last month.
Mo, can I interrupt
Yes,
you?
ma'am.
Can you either back that podium up, so that the screen will
that better?
show for everybody?
Okay.
It's still,
You can't see the
everything's
screen.
always rearranged for the folks at the end.
I'm going to let the professional touch the vibe board.
There you go. Thank you.
I don't really want to be responsible
Appreciate it.
for the vibe board. So the draft changes include that the EMC signs will only be allowed on municipal property, that inflatable signs will be prohibited in the central business district and the business district zoning districts. Then the one change that the committee made that could be discussion if you choose or if you want to move forward with it, the lighting and the goals of the ordinance update, they limited the signs to 6 square feet on illuminated signs, internally illuminated signs. And this would not apply to any municipal or safety and health uses such as a hospital, a fire department, those types of uses themselves. And then lastly, They came to a consensus to allow one 11 by 24 or less neon or neon-looking open sign per non-residential use. So those are the items, the three that were brought forward from the May meeting, as well as the one that was brought up at the meeting itself for consideration. And I just wanted to kind of go through what all the changes of this sign ordinance has been made from this point. As you know, the committee has been meeting, or it was formed in late August, early September of last year, and these are the changes that we have gone through in that time frame. So we've done a lot of clarifications and making sure there weren't inconsistencies through the ordinance with other parts of the ordinance, making some changes to the political signs, making sure that you can have one per candidate rather than one per lot. The projecting signs, we changed the size on those. Freestanding signs, we removed from the central business district. We included a uniform color palette for multi-tenant buildings. So you could have your logo on your sign, but everyone would have the same color palette used on the sign itself for the freestanding sign only. There were changes to the window signs, the allowance of what would be in the window, and that would remove any of the neon signage that was allowed. Like we had mentioned earlier, the electronic message center signs only going to be in the municipal properties, prohibiting the inflatable signs and the illumination that we just spoke about. And then we added a mural section that we spoke about several times at this board meeting, and I wanted to make sure that that was there. There have been requests to the city for murals, and staff did not have any regulations and wanted to have something in place if that came about. So those are the sections that we went through. If there are any questions at this point, if you're ready to move forward, I would say that these changes are consistent with the land use plan, and when staff recommends that the planning board would make a recommendation of approval to the Board of Aldermen if you so choose.
Anyone have any questions about any of this for Mo? This has been a while being discussed and worked on. We've about talked it to death. No questions then? Do I hear a motion that we accept these amendments for forward to section 3.19 for forwarding on to the Board of Aldermen?
So moved. Make a motion.
Thank you, Kevin. And a second, Fred? Thank you. There is a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And we will need, correct, Mo, to have someone read the consistency statement on page 19 of your packets, please. Okay, I'll do it. The City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment to the Board of Aldermen and finds that it is consistent with the city's 2014 CAMA Core Land Use Plan, originally adopted November 13, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with Policy 7.22. The city shall continually maintain all official planning documents. Thank you so much. Okay, we move forward to new business. Item I. Number 1, Section 3.17 Landscaping and Buffers, and Section 3.14 Parking Text Amendments, right-of-way updates. These reference, I believe, long-time discussion and then recent action by our Board of Aldermen on hard and soft landscaping in the city's rights-of-way from their May 9th meeting. So, Mo, I'll ask you to move ahead and discuss this for us to bring us up to date on this for 3.19, is that 7, I'm sorry. Page 21 in your packets.
Yes, and as the chair had mentioned, this was a conversation that has taken place for several years by the Board of Aldermen, And they did come to a consensus in their May meeting and made amendments to section 16.8 of the city ordinances. And those amendments clarify the uses for the right-of-way by adjacent property owners. Therefore, the UDO, which has a section that mirrored the city ordinance itself, needs to be updated to match what was adopted, and also add the sections that were added that weren't previously in the Unified Development Ordinance. So as you will see, the language in 3.17D on landscaping on public property, the first section that you see there, it shall be unlawful for any person or place, that was the original language that is currently in the UDO. The alderman added the following: is the installation of turf grasses on grade is allowed within the right-of-way. In addition, it shall be unlawful for any person to take any action whatsoever within any public right-of-way which creates a hazardous condition or safety hazard, or which otherwise interferes or obstructs in any manner the passage of persons or vehicles upon or within said public right-of-way, or which obstructs, interferes with, or hinders lawful parking with any public right-of-way. So this allows turf grasses to be planted. There was a lot of confusion about people being able to use the right-of-way in front of their homes, especially if they had a large right-of-way, and if they were able to at least put some grasses down. The next section that was added was in regard to the minimum off-street parking requirements. So this would be part of section 3.14C2, in addition to the minimum off-street parking requirements. So this would allow in the residentially zoned areas that do not require parking, that property owners would allow to have up to 2 improved parking spaces within the right-of-way in front of their home, and gave standards of the surface materials that would be allowed, including pervious and impervious, and letting the use of the spaces themselves could not be reserved solely for the adjacent property owner. They had to be left open for anyone in the right-of-way if necessary. The next, and I'm not going to read through every single one, that's not necessary. Everyone had a copy of this previously, but that's what's happening. Is they're saying you can have 2 spaces. This is how to improve them, and basically you can use them as you wish, but if someone is parking there, it's not reserved for you solely. And then the last 2 sections of that would added that the parking shall require a review and written approval by city staff, the development service directors, the public service director, and the fire marshal, and also allows the city and gives the city the right to come in and remove any of those improvements if necessary, and they are allowed to remain as long as they do not create a hazardous condition or an issue for the public for parking or movement of people or vehicles as necessary. And the last section is the vegetation or other protective measures were allowed to be permitted within 10 feet of the city trees. So that gives some more standards that would be allowed within the right-of-way as pertaining to the city trees. There was always some questions about that. These were the exact amendments that were made to the city ordinance that the Board of Aldermen have requested. So staff recommends that the Planning Board send a recommendation approval to the Board of Aldermen to get these changes so that they are consistent with the city ordinances.
Are there any questions for Mo about this?
Item C there, I find it interesting that they're going to allow planting within 10 feet of the base of the tree for protection purposes. I think that's great, but that's a new addition, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it should also be noted that the only planting that is allowed would be the grass itself.
Oh,
And so they're saying if you're adding, I think this is, you could add your grass, or you could do, if you are improving the parking itself, then it would have to be 10 feet from the tree.
so vegetation is sort of ambiguous.
Again, this is what the Board of Aldermen approved, and we are I'm bringing forward the verbiage that they had adopted.
I I think it's good to take the action that they did and get this in place and bring everything to consistency, and for it to still remain clear that the right-of-ways, the parking areas are still city property. This, as we grow, that's not always been reiterated. So I think this is a good thing to get this done. Any other questions for Mo?
I have one. It's not really a question. Where it says 10 feet from the base of a city tree, is that a 10-foot radius or just 10-foot, sort of like squared?
I would say that it would be a radius. It would go around the tree, so anywhere around that tree from any point 10 feet, yes.
Anything else? Hearing nothing else, then do I hear a motion to recommend adoption of these amendments to Section 3.17D and Section 3.14C2 as presented by staff, finding that it is consistent with the 2014 CAMA Land Use Plan? Thank you, Will. And a second? Second. Thank you, Fred. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. We'll need to have someone please read the consistency statement on page 32 of your packets. Thank you, Will.
The City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment to the Board of Aldermen and finds that it is consistent with the city's 2014 CAMA Core Land Use Plan originally adopted November 13th, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with Policy 7.22. The city shall continually maintain all official planning documents.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Can I ask a question?
You can.
As a tangible to this, Mo, where does the city stand with enforcement of right-of-way violations?
I know that there are going to be some, excuse me, there hasn't been any true guidance on how they want that to move forward at this time. So we are hoping that the Board of Aldermen provide that for city staff within the next month. I know that they've got a lot on their plate right now. So that is going to be something staff's asking. I know that they want to get things taken care of and remove some of the hard structures. So that will be coming down.
And thank you, Fred, for bringing that up, because I had a note to ask about appeal processes. That's going to be part of what you're hoping the aldermen give you guidance on how to set that up, or is there going to be an appeals process?
Again, that hasn't been sorted out, but any code enforcement violation has an appeal process that is already set in place through the UDO. So if there were any appeals, they would follow the same to go to the Board of Adjustments and or have a hearing itself.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We move on now to item H2, a major site plan modification for Walmart's expansion. It starts on page 34 in your packets, gentlemen. Mo?
So this is a major modification to a site plan, and I do want to remind the board and everyone watching that major permit reviews are administrative by right process, and if the site plan meets the requirements of the UDO, that the planning board must approve it. And that is within the process and of the administrative portion of the UDO. So as stated, this is a major site plan modification. A modification is required to go through the same manner as the original submission if it's triggered by a certain threshold. And since this was an increase in density in general, it triggered that threshold that needed to come to the planning board for its review. So that's why it's coming to you. So this is, as you can see on the site plan, this is the Walmart as it exists. On the right-hand side, they're going to, proposing an addition of 5,664 square feet. They're going to be relocating the online grocery storage area to the side of the building so that the pickup area will no longer be in the front of the building, it'll be onto the side of the building. The expansion will not increase the impervious surface of the site itself, and this is not considered an increase in the retail floor space. It's more a storage and staging of goods, so there'll be walk-in coolers, staging areas, and then they'll have a dedicated space for all of the online pickups. The landscape requirements are not triggered by this extension, but the new parking lot landscaping has been updated with native species and included and meets the requirements of the UDO as it is written now. There's no new parking required, and the existing expansion will only require 518 spaces. That's the one space for 300 square feet for a major retail establishment. And existing, they've got over 600 that are existing on site. There were pedestrian walkways added when the spaces were more than 50 feet from the building. And let me actually change. This is a close-up of what the new parking configuration would be. So you've got, this is the new expansion. Right now, this is the sidewalk on the side of the building. If you take a look at the area, you'll see the new landscaping over here. And then the walkways that they have provided for the customers won't be using this, as this is going to be employees most likely delivering the goods to the people in their vehicles. So we've added some pedestrian crosswalks for them so that they can safely move back and forth from the storage area itself. One thing to note, there won't be any new signage. Any new signage that is proposed will be considered internal, just directional, will not be able to be seen from the right-of-way, so they will not be required to get a sign permit for those. And since there was no increase in the impervious surfaces, no new stormwater improvements were required by the city engineer. I'm happy to answer any question. We've got Brian Pelham here. He is in attendance for the applicant and one of the engineers on the project. Staff has reviewed this, and that we find that it is in compliance with the UDO and would recommend approval of this request for the expansion itself.
Brian, did you want to make any comments or be ready for any questions from anyone? Does anyone have any questions for Mo or Brian about this? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here. If there are no questions, and since this is a by right with modifications and expansion plans here, and staff is recommending to us that this be approved, looks to be a simple move for the grocery pickup. I know it's not simple for Walmart. For the grocery pickup area from the front over to the side of the building. Do I hear a motion to approve this submitted site plan modification? Thank you, Donnie. In a second? Thank you, Will. There is a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mo. Our next item, we're rolling here. Item I3 is the major site plan review for the Southport Branch Meeting House, page 58 in your packets, gentlemen. Mo, if you'll move us through this application.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. So this is a major site plan review for a new construction of a 5,250 square foot church. The Church of Latter-day Saints is requesting the approval of this major site plan. It's on a 4.515 acre parcel of land that's zoned highway commercial. It includes a 25-foot front yard, a 20-foot rear yard, 8-foot side yard. And if you'll see, I've noted where this is located. So the adjacent properties to the north, you've got River Mist subdivision. So you've got a mix of both multifamily and some single-family homes there. To the south, you've got highway commercial uses. To the east is also highway commercial, and then the Lowe's Home Improvement is to the west. So it's highway commercial to the south and east and west, and then the residential to the north, as you can see. So this is site plan. There's a lot going on in this site plan. I appreciate that, and please bear with me. I'm going to go through how this site plan meets the requirements as laid out in the UDO and follow that. So you can follow that with me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to stop at any moment, or you can wait until the presentation in case there's any questions. So as I said, this property is in the Dutchman Village, thank you very much, area off of Winifred Street. So that access is from Winifred Street. Staff has reviewed that the parking is in compliance. It offers 56 spaces. 53 are required for the one space for 100 square foot for the assembly room itself. So that's the largest amount of parking was from the assembly room. The applicant has provided 5-foot sidewalks on Winifred Street and has had a lighting plan that has 8 lights that are meeting the height and color temperature requirements of the UDO. This next one, this is their landscape plan that they have and mitigation plan that they have provided. So the applicant has provided a 10-foot street yard buffer. So that is required, and they're retaining a lot of trees and vegetation in the front of this site. So they are filling in where they are not retaining trees to meet the street yard requirements for that buffer. And it's a 10-foot buffer, street yard buffer. They are adding canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs. They are also required to have a 40-foot buffer yard on the northern edge on the side yard, which is adjacent to the River Mist subdivision. Again, they're utilizing existing vegetation and adding native canopy, understory trees, and shrubs to meet the requirements of the UDO on the areas that don't have existing shrubbery or trees themselves, and they're adding shrubbery to the areas that just have the canopy trees on that 40-foot buffer. And as you can see, the parking lot landscaping is also in compliance. They're met their 1 tree and the 6 shrubs and 12 shrubs on the certain different sizes of that. So that is, and they are occurring, the landscaping islands are occurring more frequently than every 10 spaces on half of the parking lot itself. I have provided you new landscape plans, or larger landscape plans for your review, as well as the tree plan for removal, showing the removal areas. The only difference from what was in your packet on those site plans is the change of species of the shrubs that were provided, and there was 1 willow oak that was being used as mitigation credit that was removed from the tree plan removal plan itself. So that's the only difference on those. This site plan I have up here is the same that you have on at your chairs. So the applicant is retaining over 1,000 diameter breast height trees, and mitigation credits for live oak retention is over 606 inches of DBH. And that includes 2 heritage trees over 30 inches DBH. And for the mitigation, there's a portion of the tree removal zone that would make up the remaining 54 inches that was missing. So that's allowed within the UDO in that tree removal sections for any non-residential or subdivision area. The utilities will be with Brunswick County, and their Brunswick County engineer William Penix has commented for the new development, finds that it is in compliance with the county itself, and the stormwater plan is allowed to be finalized and approved by the city engineer prior to any building permits being approved. And I would like to say that Mike McLeod is in attendance for the applicant. He is their engineer and architect helping us with all of this. And staff has reviewed this for a very long time and find that it is in compliance with the UDO and recommend approval of the request as presented. And again, I said that Mike is here for any questions that you may have, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mo, I have a question. So the stormwater is not reflected in the plan that we're looking at?
They have several different plans that were attached. They have a stormwater plan there. It has not been fully reviewed by the city engineer with the full detailed plans for the water and sewer and stormwater showing the existing connections, and as Appendix A allows, that the detailed plans are submitted after the site plan or preliminary plat is approved, so that if it's not approved, if there are changes to the plan itself, then they can update those as necessary.
So one other question, comment. It looks like from the tree plan to the landscape plan, the parking on the left is reduced, is that correct, for future?
For the future parking, I did not review for the future parking. It was just a portion that they had marked out for future development.
Okay, for example, I think it's great that they are protecting some of the significant trees there. I would love to applaud that the tree ordinance this is a good example of the tree ordinance and the power it has. I do notice with the future parking, there's a 9-inch live oak is slated to be taken out, number 93, but it looks like that one could stay. I'm just curious why they wouldn't do that, and then that would lessen their mitigation.
Sir, please come to the...
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. So if a tree is very close to the future parking area, we don't want to impact the roots. You know, we've got to stay at least as far away from the trunk of the roots as the tree canopy is. So if it gets too close to it, and also we're requiring some grading that has to occur to transition to our current parking. So that's why that tree was shown to be removed, that the root zone was just too close to the grading area to survive it. I may need to look at the one you're looking at specifically, but that's why the decision was made. And I do have some larger plans if you care to look at them. I brought them with me tonight.
Would anybody want those larger plans spread out? We can make room on the table if you want to see those. Or Fred, do you want to point out that specific tree in question?
So it would seem to me if you're doing the difference between the tree plan and the landscaping plan, there's a whole row of 30 or 40 parking spaces that are not shown on the landscape plan, and the number 93 is in that future area that's not being, it's way far away.
Okay. Well, I'll be glad to open it up and look at it if you'd like, just so I'll know, specifically the situation you're looking at. So, I guess a good answer to that would be, this is a branch that is kind of growing. Right now they're meeting in a little blue metal building that used to be a auto dealership, I think. And so they're growing, and they are going to have their own building now. But they're continuing to grow, and we don't think it's going to be very long before we'll be expanding the parking lot. So while we have the contractor and the expense out there to remove these trees, we've got a plan in place to mitigate those trees that we are removing. So we would just like to do it now rather than 2 or 3 years from now come back and dig them up at that point. So that's kind of part of the thinking.
So it's just a curiosity why, and so I guess that makes sense.
What other questions for Mr. McLeod? Anything?
I have a question around the trees that you're saving in the multiplier. That's a somewhat new thing to the UDO, and this is more curiosity feedback. What you thought about essentially getting credit for saving good trees.
Oh yeah, that's needed. We still are putting back a lot of trees because the ones we put back are like 3 inches in diameter, and the ones that are coming out are bigger in some cases. But we were able to keep a really nice one here in the front. In fact, our whole entrance is sort of worked around this big live oak in the front yard, and we've tried to keep others where we could. And we've also planted some new live oaks along the street right away. That's another part of the tree ordinance, that if we take out a live oak, at least 50% of the ones we take out need to put back as a new live oak.
Anything else? And I think I noted, Mo, correct me on this. This was originally approved in 2011. For this use, it looks like, but it's come back now with design modifications to it. I think I've noted as I was looking through that.
This
Maybe
is a
something
completely
else.
different plan, but the church bought it back then, and they'd planned to build a building. And the way the church policy works, if their attendance rises to a certain level, they qualify for a building. And as it so happened, some people moved out and the economy got worse and their attendance went down, so at that point they didn't qualify. So the church just held the property until they began to grow again, and now they're at that point, they're large enough to qualify for a building. And this is a different type of building that suits them and their growth better. It is able to be expanded, but it's not a tremendously huge building. It's still a small church.
And then, Mo, it looked like there were several things. I'm going to page 94 in your packets, guys. 94 through 97, I guess it's the checklist. And there were some things that were yet to be furnished. And they sent a response letter about that on 99 through 100. Is staff okay with all of these concerns for any action we take tonight to be proper?
Yes, all of the issues that were outlined or questions that were brought up during the TRC were satisfied by the applicant.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else with any other questions? Hearing none, then do I hear a motion to approve this submitted major site plan application? So moved. Thank you, Will. And a second? Second. Thank you, Donnie. Appreciate it. It's a motion on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. McLeod, for being with us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your attention.
All right, folks, we'll move on to item I-4, the open space text amendment. It's section 4.14, recreation and open space. This is page 101 in your packets. Isn't this, I just want to ask, isn't this what this board started discussing, I think, just a few meetings ago to bring consistency to open space requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so pleased that we're in one line of thought here.
So, this is a amendment to 4.14 of the subdivision article of the UDO, and it's specifically to the recreation and open space requirements. The Board of Aldermen requested at their last meeting that the Planning View review the proposed language that we have brought forward this evening and the multipliers that were found in your packet that I have up on the screen now. The yellow highlighted section that is in your packet is what is the current multiplier, which is a 2% open space per lot. And just to give you an example, it takes 50 homes or 50 lots to get at least 1 acre of open space at this multiplier. So they ask that the planning board consider increasing the multipliers, and further, staff recommends changing the number of lots to trigger this open space. Right now, open space does not qualify on any conventional subdivisions under 20 lots. So staff would like you to consider changing that, reducing that to 10, so that we can get some more open space requirements on the conventional subdivisions. Staff has looked at this previously and wants to, the amount of dedicated open space should be proportional to the size of the lots. So we have looked at having a different multiplier for R10 lots, which are a smaller lot, than an R20 lot. So for instance, if you did a 5% for the R10, if you had 20 lots, you would then have 1 acre. If you had the 0.1 multiplier, that'd be 20 lots, you would then have the 2 acres for the 20 lots. And then the exclusion of 404 wetlands has been added to this. This was not previously in the open space requirements for the conventional subdivisions, only for the planned unit developments, which require the 20% excluding 404 wetlands. So that would be added as well, so that wouldn't be included as an option for wetlands, and they would stay open and preserved for the environment. So I would just open this up. That is what staff was proposed. That is what the board had kind of brought forward to us, saying that they liked. So I want you to have the opportunity. I'll give the floor to you if you'd like to see this language, or I can bring the multiplier calculator back up, either one. But I'm happy to help answer any questions or open the floor for your discussion.
What questions do we have for this? Mo, do we have any examples for how this would apply, make something look different that's been recently approved, or what we could see in changes? Is there some visual that we can have about that? Am I making sense with my question?
Yes, absolutely. I'm trying to. So let's use Oakton. That's the last one that we approved. The city approved. That was 45 lots, R10 conventional subdivision. So they were required to have 0.9 acres of land. So just under an acre of land. They provided more than that, but if they had strictly just said, you know what, this is what's required, you have to approve it if I give this, then that would be. If you increase it to the 0.05, then they would have been required to have over 2 acres of open space provided. So that 0.05 multiplier at 45 lots brings it up to 2.3 acres of open space. So you can see the change there. So less than an acre to over 2 acres. I don't have any R20 off the top of my head to give you an example, sorry.
Thanks. Mike, I was looking around for Mike. Well, Turtle Bay was R20, but then it became a PUD. But that would have been because that had the wetlands in it as well as the open space requirement. So yeah, so that would. But they gave us 10 acres, 10 acres of open space on the PUD side.
The only other R20s I can think of are under 20 lots, honestly.
Well, for me, I like the idea of reducing this down to 10 lot designations for subdivisions. Everyone remembers we just recently had one come through that would have been a difference for them there. Doing this, obviously, it requires increases the open space, but it'll give us full UDO oversight in these new designations for subdivisions, right? I mean, that is a plus for us, I believe. Anyone else with any questions for Mo? Any further discussion?
I think 10, you move downward. Why did you pick that number versus 5? Just curious.
To be quite honest, that's what, when Travis and I were putting this together, we started at 10, and that's just kind of worked. I think that with the land that is available for subdividing, it's not going to be, the smaller lots that could be subdivided are not still available. So I think it's going to be 10 or more for any subdivisions.
Thank you.
So the recent case, I believe, is probably ETJ down Robert Rourke that was denied from R20 to R10. If that goes with R20, do you recall how many lots were buildable in there? Was it like 10?
Yes, it was under 20. Yes.
I agree. I think it was 10, and they were requesting that it be doubled.
Yes,
basically.
so that wouldn't trigger the open space requirements.
So if with the open space requirement and they're only able to do 9, then all of a sudden they don't have to do anything but the little 2%, right?
No, that would remove, it would not have any.
Okay.
Yes. So currently, anything under 20 has 0 open space requirements. So this takes it to a 10, anything with 10 or more has to have the open space requirement itself.
How about if we change that number to 8?
And what's the rationale for 8?
Well, if the ETJ still exists in our future and that one comes back on board, then this would play into it if they're going to proceed with R20, right? It would give us more open space, but it's going to be right in the fence, whether they have to do it or not. So 8 would catch them.
I think you have to be careful singling out one. I think the best way to do it is because there's, by the sounds of things, there's not that many future subdivisions that'll be under that. So why don't you just make it 5 and then you're covered? There's no downside. You have plenty of wiggle room. What do you think, Chris?
Rather than do it by units, can you do it by land size? So say every person, blah, 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 who subdivides land for residential purposes on a parcel that is 4 or more acres, or 5 or more acres, that way you're...
So would this be a percentage similar to the planned unit development? Is that what you envision?
I think 10, 5, 8, I mean, it all seems sort of a arbitrary number, but if you maybe touch on the land size, say 5 acres is the trigger. Anything over 5 acres, the same way it is in PUD. That's where I got the idea from.
Well, okay, I guess my question is, for clarification, would this be the percentage, like a planned unit development, where you take once you hit the trigger of a number of acres it is it going to be a 20% across the board, or do you want to say if you have 4 acres, then it goes to the number of lot sizes? So rather than saying if you have 10 lots, it's triggered. It's if you have 4 acres, you have triggered, and then it would go to this multiplier, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The latter, yes. So the trigger is acreage. The definition is all lots, number of lots.
Mo, do you see any problem with going to 5?
I don't see a reason why you couldn't. I think that you would have to look at this chart and go backwards some more, because I think if you only have 5 lots, you're going to be working with a much smaller size parcel of land, and having that multiplier, half an acre on a 4-acre lot, that's one of your lots. And not saying to say that can't happen, but that's something to consider, that you're going to have a lot less land to work with, but I don't see why you couldn't. That would be the only thing that I would think of. You'd have to look at this multiplier and go backwards.
So in your experience in and when you and Travis were working on this was by lot numbers, you found this was more consistent with what's being done elsewhere rather than the total acreage, easier to work with from y'all's perspective to do that.
And remember also, something else to think of, this is just for subdivisions of land. So the conventional subdivision, that's the only way this would be triggered. The city is working on a stormwater ordinance that would make impervious surfaces and other things that would help keep open space, whether you are a single lot or within a subdivision. So that will also help kind of keep some of these open spaces that are necessary.
Is there someone that want to make a motion to change this? Anyone? To go down to that 5 unit or go down to 8? Anybody want to make a change? Or Chris, do you want to propose something for the acreage?
I'm just an alternate, so I can't propose anything. But
Well, I mean, if we're gonna do it, I would do it in increments of 5. So, if we're gonna do it by the number of units, I would do it in increments of 5. So that way we can the scale. Because if you do it start at 8, then we're gonna have to go to another variation there. But I do like Chris's idea of also having a trigger at 5 acres. I think that's a good number as well too. So it's really the pleasure of the board on that one. I think either one would be fine. But Kevin's got his finger on the pulse here.
I feel like one of those shows. I'll make a motion that reduce the number from 10 to 5 and see what everyone thinks. I think the rationale that Mo has said about the increments, the way that's been charted, and if that's the easiest way to apply, then I think we should go with that. I think it's just whether or not, when it gets triggered, is 5 really going to matter versus 10? Because Mo has already stated that there's not that many subdivisions that would even qualify with that little. The only one, I think the smallest one we have that came before us before is the one Fred mentioned with 10. And then, so, if you're worried about people manipulating numbers to get around the ordinance, then you make a lower number. Because the whole plan is open space and improvement.
I think there was one time over the last 4 years that I've been here where someone came in with a piece of land that's maybe an acre, maybe a little over an acre, and they were wanting to cut it up into 5 separate pieces. And so requiring open space for a piece of land that's that small seems, I don't know. I mean, that was just my take on it. And that's why I think the acreage side of it would be a better approach. But again, just an alternate.
Mo, have you seen similar done by acreage? Or is it by lot numbers typically?
I think it's either done by lot or as the PUD percentage by acreage is. So it's a percentage for the amount of acreage you have, not that the acreage triggers the multiplier for number of lots you have.
Okay, folks, we do have a motion on the floor to reduce this number down to 5 for capturing here. Do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Fred. So we do have a motion. We've already done other discussion. Is there more discussion to have regarding this? All right, motion is on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Mo, if you can prepare this then for that designation, please.
Yes, ma'am.
And then with that change, can we go ahead and still use the consistency statement that's on page 104 in your packets? Need someone to read that for us, please. Thank you, Will.
The City of Southport Planning Board hereby recommends adoption of the proposed zoning text amendment to the Board of Aldermen and finds that it is consistent with the city's 2014 Kamacor Land Use Plan originally adopted November 13th, 2014, and subsequently amended by the Southport Board of Aldermen. More specifically, the proposed amendment is consistent with Policy 7.22. The city shall continually maintain all official planning documents, and Policy 4.4. Southport supports regulation of 404 wetlands by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the city does not want new or expanded development of any kind to result in any loss of wetlands.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Mo. All right, we are down to item J, other business. Let's talk just a minute, if we can, about our elephant that's been hanging around in our rooms for a while now, House Bill 1064. 1064 made some movement today, folks, and it looks a little different. It was with the State and Local Government Committee and on today's Senate calendar, slated to be discussed at the conclusion of today's Senate session. By the time that was over and the committee met, 1064 was moved to another House bill, House Bill 911. And 1064, as it exists now, passed the Senate floor today. Our information for Southport went to House Bill 911. So, and that, we found that just before we started this meeting today. It is now, Chris, do you still have that pulled up where 911 sits now? Is it with? Oh, 911 was passed today, okay. So our information was in House Bill 911. Is that correct? Okay. So it passed the Senate today. So now it goes back to the House for a couple more votes. So this bill is moving, folks. It is very much alive and kicking still in the legislature. Since my public comments at the June 13th Board of Aldermen meeting, I've spoken, as I'm sure some of you have too, with a lot of residents and encouraged them to continue to contact their legislators on both sides of the aisle, since this will have to go back over. This bill could deteriorate protection of the areas that surround Southport City proper. I want everyone to realize that currently we do not even know what the zoning for the current ETJ would be if the county is given authority over this area. This should concern every single one of us. I can tell you that for me, I can almost hear the collective lip smacking of investors, developers, and realtors over the thought of the tracts surrounding our little town being opened up to county-only approval processes. And if you don't realize that it's very easy to set up an LLC in North Carolina for investors to start a company. I want folks to also understand that should this change occur, it will forever alter the look as you enter Southport. There are independent, we call them encapsulated properties zoned as ETJ on House Street, mixed in with those that are inside our city limits, that may well turn into a shockingly different development of our main street coming in. If or when this bill passes finally as first introduced, the city will have no control over those parcels. The county will. Anyone that's driven 211 in not even the recent past can see the results of the county's oversight and development intentions. Note there is currently no tree protection, not a lot of water preservation or runoff or density considerations. It's shocking. I am still disheartened at the minimal call to arms from the city about the legislation. Previously, for legislative issues, there were town meetings called so that everyone understood what was going on and their own place in those efforts. With very little mention of this legislation was made from the time of its filing in early May to my comments as a citizen on June 13th. I don't understand that, still don't. Perhaps at some point that'll be better explained for us. Now, as this legislative train moves down the track, because in short session, the General Assembly likes to be gone by the end of June. They prefer that so they can get back home for 4th of July celebrations. I continue to ask everyone who's not done so to contact our legislators or other senators, House members, and then whatever you can do that could be involved in the vote on this legislation, and ask them to help protect Southport and its outlying areas. We have to pull out all the stops now and work in the future to assure proper protection of Southport and indeed all of Brunswick County. That done, is there any additional other business to be brought before the board tonight? If not, we'll move on to item K then, our announcements. Anyone?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank the planning board for this lovely gift. It's been a pleasure. When I started, a lot of them are no longer here, but I just want to say that thank you. And I'll be around when I'm not out of town, but I just want to thank all of you for all that you've done in the city of Southport. And that's it.
And Donnie, you are highly valued, and we expect you to continue to stay involved in what's going on with this board and the Board of Aldermen. We expect you to stay involved in Southport. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie.
And so, barring any specially called meeting, we will not be assembled again before the 4th of July. I want to wish all our members and the viewing public a happy and safe 4th. May we always remember the reason we're able to celebrate that date. Item L on our agenda, your member information. I'm going to note that is no issue, but the Historic Preservation Commission's attendance record was in our packet rather than ours. Like I say, it's no problem. So with the business of our evening concluded, I'll note that Mr. Lachlan returns now to non-voting status as an alderman. We thank you, Kevin, for your help tonight. And now, with no other business, can I get a motion, please, that we adjourn? Thank you, Johnny. Like last action here, right? How about a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Will. Motion is on the floor. Any final discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Our meeting is adjourned at 7:11. Good night, everyone.